Beautiful, Neil. It's great to have you back in town. Neil was in Detroit for the holidays. So we have, as you know, a special guest speaker this evening, TAhir. He goes by Zaf. Zaf traveled to Israel and the West Bank with the American Jewish Committee as part of Project Interchange, a program designed to build and strengthen relationships between the U.S. Jewish and Muslim communities. Mr. TAhir serves as the Commissioner for Houston Planning and Houston Airports, and he has a BS in Electrical Engineering from Cullen College, an MBA from Bauer, and both at UH, and a JD from Thurgood Marshall School of Law here in Houston. He's licensed in the state of Texas as an attorney and also as a professional engineer. He currently has a consulting and legal practice in Houston, and he serves on the board of the University of Houston Bauer College of Business. Zaf is also a member of AJC's Interfaith Community of Conscience Engagement, which I'm also a member, and he is also one of the few Muslim seminar participants who's willing to speak publicly about his experience in Israel and the West Bank. AJC's Project Interchange has taken over 6,000 global leaders to Israel for nearly 4 decades. Iris Mushin and our own Tracy Stein are on the board of the Project Interchange, and we're very proud that Tracy is a member of that program and a sponsor of the program. Zaf also wanted me to make sure to mention that he was perhaps the first Muslim to speak at an AJC breakfast several years ago, a breakfast that was organized by Tracy Stein. And I also want to give a shout out to Randy Sarlinsky, who is the director of the regional office of the American Jewish Committee. Randy is here this evening also with us. So now, without further ado, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Zaf to tell us about his trip.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Shalom. It's a huge honor to be invited to speak to this august gathering of worshipers this evening at Shabbat renewal. These 10 days of awe are set aside for contemplation, or Shuvah, as you call it, and it is what I, as Muslim American, would like to do, contemplation, if you allow me to do so. I'm thankful to Rabbi Stephen Morgan and the congregation at Beth Yeshurun for allowing me this opportunity. Please allow me to set the stage. I came here as an immigrant from Pakistan in 1980, barely 18-year-old. Now, after 3 college degrees, 2 professional licenses, various work endeavors, both in the US and overseas, and one in Middle East for 4 years, a lot of political and social activism in this town, even running for office. In fact, when I ran for office, Tracy Stein, Steve Finkelman, Brian Ettinger, David Mintzberg, all of them were supportive of me. A lot of ups and downs in life, but today, here I am. I consider myself as one of thoroughly blessed to be part of American society and to be associated with the city of Houston as an appointed commissioner. Yes, I'm proud to be a Houstonian, the most diverse city in America. My hands are... I'm happily married, 2 boys, and a granddaughter that was recently born, Noor Jahan. Today, my prayer for Noor Jahan in this holy place of worship is that Noor Jahan should grow up in a very pluralistic society, not just here in the US, but in the lands from where her forefathers came from. I want her to take pride in all of the Middle East, with all of its history and all of its traditions. The Middle East, with the Holy Land at its fulcrum, Jerusalem, a fulcrum that she should be able to navigate with ease, not just because she has an American passport, but because in future, hopefully, that would be the norm. The Holy Land that brings people together free from fear, oppression, and for some people, occupation. Diverse? Yes, it is. But it needs to be harmonious. And in future, I pray that it be harmonious where everyone has a voice, everyone is heard, everyone has a vote that's counted, everybody has a spot on the table, everybody has a place on the stage. And everybody has freedom to celebrate one's inspiration without violating the right of others. The region that I visited is in turmoil, and do not let the normalcy that you see make you feel otherwise. It is in turmoil not only because it is ethnically in turmoil, it's politically in turmoil, it's religiously in turmoil, but even naturally it's in turmoil. And when I say naturally, what I mean is the climate change and the recent pandemic. This climate change can wipe out borders, settlements, authorities, future capitals. The pandemic has recently shown us that it's actually a message from God that we need to get our act together. So why did I go to Israel? Why did I go to that region? Randy, who's sitting here, was the one who brought me this idea. And I said, I would like to go, but I would go in a very transparent manner. I would like to go in a manner where I would come back and I would be able to share my experiences with an average Houstonian, Muslims, non-Muslims aside. I said, when I'm there, I would like to post every day, and I did. I requested that I be allowed freedom to design my own trip. I started my trip staying in East Jerusalem for 4 days. I met with the mayor of Bethlehem, who is a Christian. His name is, I'm trying to see, Mayor Anton Salman. He's the mayor of Bethlehem. I was the guest of a reverend, a Christian Arab, Danny Akle. And that first day in Bethlehem allowed me to meet with daily people, daily life in Bethlehem. I had breakfast there, I had lunch over there, and then it was my wish that I should take the bus that actually leaves from Bethlehem and goes to Jerusalem. I didn't want it to be in a taxi. I wanted to experience the bus that brings people who want to visit Jerusalem, who want to pray at Masjid al-Aqsa, who want to work in Jerusalem. So I got on the bus. At the checkpoint, I was asked to step down with other people. There was a queue. I got in a queue. I showed them my passport. So I wanted to experience that, and I did. I spent 3 days in Jerusalem on my own. I walked all the streets. I went to the Western Wall. I went to the underground historical sites in Jerusalem. I had tea and coffee with a lot of Jewish people who lived in Jewish quarters. I met the Armenians. I'd spent time with the Arabs. I stayed actually at a hotel which is called New Imperial Hotel. It's owned by the family of Mr. Dajani Daoudi, who was one of the speakers. He is from Jerusalem. Then we started our actual trip in Tel Aviv, where on the first day we had a lot of interactions with different segments of the society. And those segments came from all parts of Israel. One important thing for Muslim Americans here in this town that they need to know is that Israel is a very multi-ethnic, multi-religious society. It's not monolithic. It's not homogeneous. There's an impression that it's mostly white European. No, even among the Jewish people, I saw tremendous diversity. I'll give you one example. 47% of all pharmacists in Israel are Arabs, both Muslims and Christians. Over 20% of all physicians are Arabs. These are Israeli Arabs who live in Israel, carry Israeli passport. We spent a lot of time discussing the security issues of Israel. We discussed a lot of time discussing the conflict, discussing various solutions. But the most important thing that we did was we went to towns like Jaffa and Haifa, where we met with individuals who are actually representing these constituencies. We met a Knesset member who brought with him his chief of staff, who was an Arab Israeli. We met with a person who is a Qadi, who is a judge. And this judge sits in the Israeli Sharia court. Now just imagine if I will tell my average American friend that in Israel, there is a fully functional Sharia court system. There is a rabbinical court, and there are Christian courts. And these courts are not outside the judicial system. They're part of the Israeli judicial system. They flow into Israeli high courts and supreme courts. So we met with this judge, Muhammad al-Qadi, and actually I wanted to invite him, and then COVID came. I would love to have this person here so that I can present him to the Texas Bar, to the Lawyers Association, to the general public here, and tell them that, look, this is one face of Israel, where it is accommodating the religious wishes of various religions. We also came face to face with what I call the high-tech, emerging high-tech center in West Bank. Again, West Bank has now realized that it's sitting right next to Tel Aviv and sitting right next to Israel, where there is a huge high-tech industry. So I met people who are collaborating with people across the checkpoints, and they are being successful. This is, again, a segment that needs to be on the radar screen of Muslim American community here. Of course, in all of this, we also saw the tension. We also saw the misery. And I spent a lot of time in the 3 days that I was in Jerusalem talking to people. But then, as the part of official program, we also went 2 days back to West Bank. First day we spent in Ramallah, where we actually spent a good amount of time, including lunch, with the representative of Palestinian Authority. We had a very frank discussion with Palestinian Authority as to what they think the problems are and what the solution should be. And they were telling us their side of the story, and we actually very openly told them what we think as not just Muslim, but American Muslims. One thing that I came back with is Israel and West Bank are intertwined. They are dependent on each other. This is one big holy land where all three religions come together. People from all over the world come together. I mean, there are Jewish people who have moved there in 40s from Karachi, Pakistan, where I was born, from India, from Morocco, from a lot of Middle Eastern countries. It smells Middle Eastern. It tastes the same. The people there, when they get up in the morning in Tel Aviv, in a regular suburb, their concerns are same as ours. You know, how they're going to fight traffic, how they're going to get to work, what is the safety of their family members when they go and they come back home, what is the education like, where are the opportunities. These are the things that people worry about day-to-day basis. And this is what brings people together. Recently, we saw when we had a protest in Israel and West Bank, an average Israeli citizen, I think, paid, and the media paid more attention to the protest of the Arab Israeli citizens inside Israel rather than on the West Bank. And I think that's a phenomena that needs to be noticed, because now you have this emerging power of Israeli citizens who are not Jewish, who are either Christian or Muslim. We saw in the recent Knesset elections that they play a role, and they will continue to play a bigger and bigger role. So, in my opinion, it is naturally moving toward either a very diverse, multi-ethnic, multi-religious society, or some kind of a two-state solution where people will agree to come together. My thoughts, and I know I'm short on time, and maybe I'll take some questions. Muslim American community in America, and especially in Houston, can play a role by visiting the region more and more, by meeting with the people on the ground, by interacting with people not only who are on the other side of the checkpoint in West Bank and Gaza, but also Muslim and Christian communities inside Israel. There needs to be more interaction, direct interaction with them. There needs to be maybe economic ties with them. There needs to be more social exchange with them, maybe student-to-student exchange, because that's what we will do best in bringing the communities together. So I had a lot to share. When I was there, I posted almost every day. I'm very vocal about my point of view. And if any one of you or group of you would like to get together with me, I can share the photographs and some of my comments and talk more in detail. But if you have one or two questions that I can take now, or we can do it later.
I was going to say, I think we have time for 2 questions. So if you have a question, I can call upon you and just speak really loudly from your seat. If anyone have any questions at all for Zaf. Right there. Please, and stand up and speak really loudly so everyone can hear you. So did everyone hear that?
Yes, yes.
So it was a good question. It was, let me repeat the question.
Please.
Or I'll repeat it real quick. So good question. It's good to see you. The question was, you had dreams, after you had dreams and visions of what Israel would be, and how did that match the reality of what you saw?
Of course, there are few places that I've always dreamt about going. Jerusalem was at the center of this. I actually thought that it will be, at least on the Israeli side, suffocating and maybe more regimental. When I landed in Tel Aviv, first of all, the entire process of going into Israel, the immigration part and everything, is much easier than a lot of other countries I have been to. I found it to be extremely Americanized. Tel Aviv is very much like Santa Monica in California. I found people to be very friendly. Even people who had point of view that was not coinciding with me, which was 180 degrees apart, they were open to discussion. Because people get tired of conflict. So my dream was that I will be in this splendid city surrounded by a lot of tension. And I found Jerusalem to be at peace. I found the neighborhoods to be at peace. Of course, while I was there, there were some skirmishes on the border. That's why we couldn't go to Golan. But I found it to be a place where, when I came back, I'm telling my friends that if you want to go one place that will bring peace to you, that would bring calmness to your personality, go visit Jerusalem.
We have time for one more question, if there are any more questions. Please, speak real loud so everyone can hear you.
What inspired me to go to Israel is, look, I'm a commissioner appointed by the mayor, city of Houston. I've been a political activist. And the state of Israel is a reality. Muslim Americans are very well aware that there is an Arab-Israeli conflict, and for them, that's reality. For them, the reality is that a lot of injustice was done. But it is also reality that Israel exists, and it should exist. People have a right to live. And I think that's the majority point of view now. I wanted to make an attempt to see what can I do when I come back, because I should be able to tell people that I was there. You know, I met the people. I have exchanged ideas with them. I have walked the streets. I have actually visited places like Jaffa and Haifa. In Haifa, I visited the street where there are homes with the key. The key is waiting for its occupants who were driven out in 1948, right or wrong. So these are the realities, and I wanted to be there to come back and say, you know what, I have firsthand experience. And I would like to go again, because I think more interaction would help. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I want to thank Beth Yeshurun and all the rabbis I would love to interact more. If any one of you are interested, please get in touch with them, and we can arrange something in a smaller group. Thank you so much. Shalom.
And Zaf, before you sit down, I want to thank you on behalf of the congregation for having the dream and the vision of coming and speaking here at a synagogue. I know in some circles it takes a lot of courage as a proud Muslim to speak in a synagogue, and I wish more people would follow your lead. And you set a vision of what can be. It's very easy when you watch the news to give up hope that there will never be peace in places like the Middle East, that it's endless conflict and war. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that people are tired of it, Jews and Arabs. And I think many of us, when we go to Israel, when we meet Israelis, Jewish Israelis, Arab Israelis, we meet Palestinians, as I had the opportunity to do years ago, we see that overwhelming majority of them are good people, just wanting to do what you and I have the blessing to do here in America, raise our kids, send them to college. Yes. But that peace won't come unless there's people with courage like yourself who come and are not afraid to come speak at a synagogue, to say what your feelings were about that trip, and to share that experience with us. So I applaud you in your work, and I wish you only Godspeed in continuing that work. And I hope and pray you'll have a chance to go to Israel again, and I hope you'll have a chance to come back here to Beth Yeshurun. And I want to thank our friends, Randy and American Jewish Committee, and all those involved with the very important AJC, and Tracy Stein for making this happen, and Rabbi Morgan. Zaf will be available after services if you'd like to discuss more with him. And on September 23rd, Thursday, September 23rd at noon, we'll be having a Zoom lunch with Zaf and Rabbi Morgan. Just go to our website to find out more information. You'll have a chance to ask more questions, more discussion. We continue this dialogue, this partnership, doing just a little bit of what we can here in Houston, Texas, to bring more shalom into the world. So thank you, Zaf.
Shalom.
Appreciate
Thank you. Thank you very much.